Hi, I'm Alex from Investomation, and today I will be talking about CobraSwap. I usually don't show individual projects on this channel, but this project in particular is a great example of how I would go about doing my research before aping into a new project, something I covered in the last episode. It's also a great example of how a native token rises and falls, the kind of swings it goes through, something I also covered in the last episode as well when I spoke about minimizing risk. The project is CobraSwap, a clone of ViperSwap, launched by the same team but on Binance instead of Harmony. You probably already know that I'm a fan of Harmony ecosystem.
For those not familiar with it, it's basically what Ethereum 2.0 wants to become, but already functional. And the optimizations within Harmony are something even Ethereum 2.0 would be jealous of. Given the multiple delays we're already seeing with Ethereum 2.0, we probably won't see a functional mainnet this year, or even next. It's only a matter of time until Ethereum fanboys realize this as well. Harmony's DeFi ecosystem has already surpassed Ethereum in daily transaction volume. But to be fair, that doesn't say much, given the fact that no one in their right mind is using Ethereum right now. If you do want to know more about Harmony's bleeding edge tech, one of Harmony's validators, Wellness One Sean, has posted a set of infographics simplifying the white paper. If you're curious about Harmony, I definitely recommend checking them out. I'll post a link in the description. To be fair, Harmony is not without its flaws. The main ones being low number of validators, meaning that it's not yet as decentralized as Ethereum, and relative lack of liquidity compared to other popular networks. Plus, it's mainly running in a single shard right now, because cross-shard smart contracts are still being worked on. ViperSwap was the first DEX to launch on Harmony back in March, and since then attracted about $30 million in liquidity. This may seem small compared to a typical DEX on Polygon, but for Harmony's DeFi ecosystem, which is relatively new and probably has less than $100 million total locked between all of its DEXs, this is huge. The only DEX that's more reputable on Harmony right now is SushiSwap, because it has already proven itself on other networks. ViperSwap was founded by an anonymous developer, which is usually a red flag, and the first couple months for ViperSwap were rocky. However, since then, this developer, who goes by the name 0xViper, hired a larger team to moderate social channels. Unlike traditional DEXs, ViperSwap locks up 95% of your earnings until December 25th, 2021, after which they slowly vest each day until December 25th, 2022. This is what allows ViperSwap to give such generous rewards without the token crashing from massive sell-offs. When ViperSwap was first announced in Medium, the developer also formed VenomDAO, a community for managing all things Viper, including CobraSwap, a sister DEX that they planned to launch on Binance Smart Chain in June. June came and went, and it seemed like CobraSwap idea was abandoned. However, on July 26, VenomDAO posted a cheesy video on Twitter announcing the launch of CobraSwap. As with all new DEXs, price quickly skyrocketed, only to plummet back down after the first week. Given the reputation ViperSwap has already earned in Harmony, I think CobraSwap has a bright future. I jumped into this project early because it satisfied my criteria of strong DeFi project I outlined in the last video. Remember what I said last time. If you can do your research quickly, you can jump into a project while the APRs are still astronomical, while the rest of the community still sees the project as risky. And it technically is, but given the team behind it, the project has a lot more upside than downside. So, ape responsibly. By the time a project like this catches mainstream attention, most of the crazy APRs will be gone. Just look at Sushi. I love the project, but you won't see them paying more than 100% APR on any of their pairs. So let's break down CobraSwap based on the guide from the last video.
Step 1. Do we know how Cobra can fail? Yes, we do. It's a DEX, so the main mode of failure is the native token going to zero. Do we know anything about its smart contracts? Well, the tokenomics are identical to ViperSwap, which has been operating in Harmony for 5 months. So a rug pull or them sneaking something sketchy into the new contracts is highly unlikely, especially since they open source them. Step 2. Do your own research. In this scenario, RugDoc is useless because CobraSwap is too new and ViperSwap from Harmony isn't covered by Rockdog. However, as I mentioned, the contracts are open source, identical to ViperSwap, with the exception of the unlock schedule. And there have already been several threads discussing ViperSwap's smart contracts and fixes, such as removal of migrator logic they inherited from BAL Finance, and disabling minting of new tokens they had in the original version of the contract. VenomDAO has been operating smoothly on Harmony since early March, has participated in joint AMA sessions with Harmony, and even helped more junior DEXs on Harmony, such as LootSwap, fix bugs in their contracts. So while there's definitely some risk in joining a new DEX, I'm going to conclude that CobraSwap is one of the safer DEXs to launch on Binance, based on VenomDAO history and partnership with Harmony. Step 3. Minimize exposure. But before we jump into that, you should understand the typical life cycle of a DEX.
The price of a native token on a new DEX tends to be a roller coaster during the first few weeks, and Cobra is no exception. You have the first wave of kids who camped the Telegram groups, waiting for new DEX announcements to rush in and buy the farming token for pennies. These guys typically don't care about the long-term well-being of the DEX, cashing out native token as soon as they receive the rewards, sometimes without participating in farming at all, simply speculating on the price. These guys often exit the pools just a couple days after joining, moving on to a new DEX to shit on as soon as the yield shows any sign of decline. They often jump into a new DEX that spawns without doing any research on its reputation. Their thinking process that even if the DEX is planning an eventual rug pull, the rug should stay there for at least a few days. The name for these farmers in the community is degens, precisely because of the degenerative approach to yield farming that ends up doing more harm than good to all of the DEXs. VenomDAO has a couple measures to discourage them, such as heavy penalties for withdrawing your funds early and reward lockups preventing degens from flooding the market with their rewards. The first week of CobraSwap saw 99% of your rewards being locked up. Second week was 97%, which we're going through right now, and third week and after is going to be 95%, just like ViperSwap. An interesting detail that developers neglected to mention in Medium articles, where normal people get their announcements from and only mentioned on Telegram, where degens get their announcements from, is that lockups are calculated at the time of claiming the reward, not at the time of receiving it. This opens up room for an exploit where you can unlock more tokens than you should be entitled to simply by waiting until the unlock amount changes. Basically, if you wait until week 2 to press the claim button, you unlock 3% of your first week tokens instead of 1%. Same thing will happen on week 3 when we go to 5%. As you can see from the charts, even with anti-degen measures of VenomDAO, CobraSwap still experienced quite a severe degen roller coaster. But this crash would have been way worse if it wasn't for the lockups. Next group is what I call the jaded farmer, who has been screwed over one too many times by the first group and learned to roll with the punches. This person has done his homework, understands the DEX and the team behind it, bullish on the project future, and wants to accumulate the native token. However, jaded by his encounters with the GGN community, he's careful not to lose his funds. He'll continue selling the coin because he expects it to dump eventually, when he'll be back to scoop up more. These individuals are simply invested with foresight. They're not trying to hurt the project, yet their actions cause a second wave of sell-offs. We see the secondary wave over and over as the price stabilizes. These patterns may take days or weeks to play out. The final group of farmers is the inexperienced farmer. This poor guy gets screwed over by both of the previous groups because he doesn't think 2 steps ahead. These are the guys who got dumped on at the end of snack month because they didn't expect 1600% drop in the rewards to cause downward pressure on the price of Viper. These are the guys who learn economics the hard way, through their own experience. And unfortunately, we've all been in this boat. Some of us more often than others. I must admit that I was recently in this boat as well. I anticipated the crash of Viper at the end of snack month and withdrew my funds ahead of time, moving them to safer pools like 1 ETH and 1 BTC. I also anticipated the crash at the end of the first halving cycle for CobraSwap, but underestimated its impact. Many people lost their shirt during the first week of Cobra launch, including myself. This one's actually my friends. I believe we've reached the bottom and started a recovery, so I'm still keeping my money in the pool. So what does this mean to you, the guy who wants to minimize exposure? It means that you shouldn't be in this third group, not often at least. Do your research ahead of time on upcoming events, anticipate how they'll affect the price. Withdraw early if you have to. It's better to lose out on some rewards than lose half of your investing capital. I typically don't withdraw just because of the halving cycle, but the first halving tends to be the most brutal, mainly because it scares away the degens who came to shit on the DEX. Remember what I said last time. Pools with native token are vulnerable to the changes in price of the native token. That means the only safe pool right now is BNB-BUSD pair. This is why this pool has the lowest APR. It's clearly more popular than the rest, despite the much lower return. So if you're not completely sure if CobraSwap is safe, for example, but do want to benefit from its upside, this would be the pool to join. Remember that your profits will be much lower here, but it's the safer approach. With the astronomical APRs we're seeing right now, your rewards will be high enough anyway, as long as you're willing to wait for those rewards to unlock. There is, of course, the opportunity cost of having your funds locked up, so you wouldn't want those rewards to go to zero when it's time to unlock them. Which brings me to my next point. If you're this fourth type of investor, you have to realize that you're not really helping the project you want to succeed. It's in your interest for the price of the token to be worth more when it's unlocked than it is today. And yet, when you don't create demand for the token and only leech out its supply, you inevitably contribute to the token instability. This is something to consider as well, if you do want the project to succeed. The launch of CobraSwap coincided with the end of Snack Month. I believe the intent of VenomDAO was to have those Viper rewards flow into Cobra, mitigating the crash of Viper while simultaneously rewarding loyal members. This would explain why the Viper Cobra pool got the second largest allocation of funds at 35%. 33% now due to new pools appearing. Unfortunately, as you can see from the liquidity locked and the APRs, this plan backfired, with many joining the Cobra BNB pool instead. Rule of thumb, the lower the APR, the more popular the pool is. Usually safe pools are more popular. These APRs are a good indication of community's perception of safety. I think Viper team expected more people to participate in the Viper Cobra pool to stabilize the price of Viper. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and many experienced investors lost a portion of the capital. If I was VenomDAO, I would have required Viper to be locked up to obtain Cobra initially, which would have created more scarcity for both coins initially. Naturally, there are multiple posts on ViperSwap subreddit accusing the team of trading liquidity from Viper. One thing we all have to remember is that DeFi world is still a Wild West. No one player understands the entire cause and effect chain, not even the team running the smart contracts. The best we can do is iterate on existing solutions, fixing the mistakes that happened before to avoid repeating them in the future, which is why most DEX smart contracts trace their lineage back to Uniswap. It's a tried and true starting point.
Similarly, as participants of DeFi, the best we can do is learn from our mistakes and avoid repeating them again. A lot of people got hurt as a result of Snack Month due to impermanent loss. The very same people Snack Month aimed to reward. The very same people who voted for it. I'm personally bullish on the future of VenomDAO and see the current growing pains as temporary. A lot more people are sitting on the sidelines because they're scared of impermanent loss. But at the end of the day, crypto isn't meant to be hoarded. Crypto is meant to circulate. A token's value comes from its utility, not scarcity. But that's a topic for another episode. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe.